Okay, welcome back to another episode of Becoming an Online Sales Queen. And today I'm joined by an amazing, incredible lady, Lyndsey, who is one of my mastermind clients and a very dear friend now. She is, like me, a corporate escapee. And on today's episode, we're going to share with you, well, I mean, I don't know where the conversation is going to go, to be honest, but we're going to share with you some of the reasons why we both left corporate. I'm going to ask Lyndsey what her big triggers were, what made her leave corporate. And now she's running not one, but two successful businesses. Really delighted to have her here on the show. She is one of the top 100 most inspiring women, which I will let her tell you all about. So let's dive into this week's episode. Lyndsey, welcome.
Thank you. What an introduction. Thank you so much.
It's always better, isn't it, when somebody else introduces you? You always sound like better. And someone introduces me, I'm like, oh, wow, is that me?
I know. I was like, oh, Lady Lyndsey. This is amazing.
Yeah.
That's another great reminder of just remembering actually how far we've come. I was having a conversation with someone today about COVID and remembering actually in COVID, I had a corporate job and I didn't feel like my worth. I didn't feel like I was utilizing my skills. I always had that feeling that I was meant for something more and I didn't know what. And then, 5 years later, now I'm an award-winning entrepreneur with two fantastic businesses and have never felt more myself in my life.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Well, let's dive into just what you just said there to start with. Two amazing businesses. Tell us just a little bit about both of those businesses.
Okay, so I became a coach back in 2017. And that was after going through infertility and IVF miscarriage, which sadly led to my divorce and me feeling very displaced in my social circle and having to rebuild my life. And when I got a handle on what that meant for me, I really wanted to do something that would help other people also rebuild their life. I didn't want to be a therapist. I felt like I'd had enough grief. I wanted to do something that was going to push people forward. So I created a coaching business and I really loved coaching entrepreneurs in my training. They just had this like fire in their belly. But weirdly, I didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur at that stage. Even though I was so excited to be a coach, I always felt it would be something I would do off the side of the desk to help people. And then it was only when the pandemic hit and that feeling of social isolation, being infertile, being single and being really happy about it and being very successful in my corporate career then shone a light on when the lockdown ends, I don't have the same friends around me now. And I was watching my city of Brighton and Hove really struggle and I wanted to do something that was going to be good and that was going to help the city get back on her feet. And for all those people who chose to call Brighton home, that they could feel at home with the right people around them. And so I started a business called Connected Brighton. It's a city concierge service that helps people have a good time by putting their pound into independent Brighton and Hove businesses. So we run a social concierge, we take people out for like tours, tastings, activities, we run a business club, we do marketing, branding and advertising for those guys. And we also support visitors to the city as well through and working with the Tourism Alliance and Visit Brighton.
Powerhouse. That is all I can say. Absolute powerhouse. I love it. And do you know what I love more than just hearing all the great stuff that, you are adding value to other people with every single day? I love the passion that you speak about it with, like it lights up your soul, which I absolutely love.
Oh, and it's so, I never saw this coming. I didn't have a glint in my eye of like, one day I'd love to take people kayaking in Brighton. I didn't think about that.
Really? Why not?
I know. And from that, going from corporate, I remember, because I had a very senior corporate career to then posting on LinkedIn saying, does anybody want to come play ping pong this week? Or would you like to come kayaking? And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't think I'll ever work again if this doesn't work out. Actually, I only ever had this amazing response. And, the Connected is, as much as I made Connected has made me, because I've been able to release parts of me I didn't know existed. I've got resilience and grit I had no clue. And whenever I said that to friends and family, they're always like, the only person that didn't know was you. And that's the other wonderful thing about when you believe in yourself and you start a business, is actually you unlock the parts of you that are the true you, that have always been there, that you can't always see. It just like one of the veils comes off. Yeah. And that's been the part that I'm really grateful for, that I can live true to myself and my skills, that I get to be in control of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is such a gift, isn't it? Like, especially coming from the world that we both came from in corporate, where Your time is not your own, you feel like you're constantly asking for permission. I know I used to feel like my calendar was on display, like I was performing, for every hour of every day had to be accounted for, it had to be productive, there had to be a result from it, and obviously everything gets measured in corporate. And although I climbed the ladder as you did, it it's definitely a far cry from the life that we're living today. So, what was your corporate life actually like?
So I did love being in corporate for a long time. I think the thing that frustrated me in my corporate life was that I worked for certain organisations where there was a real glass ceiling, and the people who were at the top were never going to leave. And
Yeah,
so you could only you could only get so far, and to be, judged by someone else's standards. But what I always really loved about it was that I was always people orientated. So, I was working in planning and performance, that was my specialism. So when it came to being a coach, I was like, oh, I've been doing this for 15 years, just we didn't call it coaching in the corporate world. But I loved making sure that everyone in the organization had a voice. I loved that I got to, network internally and have those stakeholder management relationships. I was always famous for having a lunch break with someone different every day and making friends and
yeah,
knowing what was going on in the city. So again, when it came to Connected, I was like, oh, actually, I've always really had my finger on the pulse.
yeah.
But the corporate career was, I enjoyed it till I didn't. I got to a point where I felt I don't want to go any higher than, I watched the stress of the people higher than me, and I thought, is that what I want in my life? Probably not. And I worked for both public and private sector, which have very different challenges, different pros and cons. And again, it wasn't enticing me to want to keep pushing forward. And I also saw a lot of the behaviours of people that had been in those organisations for forever that were never going to leave. And I just felt if I don't make a change soon, I will turn into one of those people, and I won't be able to get out. I remember taking one of the biggest career of my life when I was 39, and I was so scared to go up to that level. But I thought, if I don't leave government, I will be in government forever.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful that I took that risk. And it probably started that ripple for me in terms of, because I already had started coaching and obviously encouraging people to follow their dreams and follow their hearts, and take the risks that go with that. Because I really think life is for living. One of my favourite lines that I always say is, it's here to be enjoyed and not endured.
Yeah.
And I felt if I'd have stayed in corporate, I would have just been enduring it. And you hear all those people say, oh, but then it's got the money to let me do what I want at the weekend, or it's got a great pension, or it's flexi time. And for me, that wasn't enough for what I was having to do in between. Like, you're at work a long time.
Absolutely. I always talk about, like you, there's so many things I loved about being in corporate. And like you just said, I loved it till I didn't. It was like hitting a wall, at 100 mile an hour, and having that realization of, what am I doing? Like, there's a world out there, and I'm just like in here. It felt like being institutionalized. And something that you just said really struck a chord with me, and I think will be really, really important for our listeners who are still in corporate to hear us talk about. And that is that your skills in corporate are transferable outside. And I definitely remember feeling like, well, I'm unemployable. Nobody outside of this business would want me, because I've been in this business. I was there 17 years. I've been here so long that I think like the company, I act like the company. People always joke and say, like, you've got the company branding running through your veins, like, I am the company. Like, I represented them in such a strong, like, powerful way. But I definitely felt like my skills were only valuable inside the business, not outside the business. Did you ever have that feeling?
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like you kind of become weirdly famous in your four walls
Yeah.
when you work for corporate. And I definitely felt that in both the organisations that I worked for, had a really good name and a really good reputation. But you end up staying for the fear that you can't be something outside of it, or that you'd be starting again if you start outside of it. And I think corporate's very clever at that, in keeping people where they are. Or I still talk to people from one old organisation, and they only ever talk about getting a job within that organisation.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just can't leave. You're so institutionalized by it. Whereas I'm this like shiny unicorn. I'm like, hey, you guys, come outside. There's other stuff out here. Like,
Yeah, it's really cool.
it's really cool. And I've had that with people when they get made redundant, and obviously then they have to leave an organisation. And there's obviously a grief that comes with redundancy, and I've seen that a lot with people I know who've been made redundant. Like I felt that even though I hadn't been in my organisation a long time, something about the word redundant just triggers things for people.
Yeah.
But everyone I know that's been made redundant has only ever gone on to do really great things and realise their potential more and more, whether that is to go to another organisation or it is to start their own gig in some way or another.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I left with like an exit agreement. So it was like, you know, you can't go and work here, you can't go for one of the competitors, you can't do this, that, and the other. But the one thing they didn't say is you can't run your own business. So I was just like, okay, well, the world is my oyster. And I remember not even knowing what LinkedIn was like back then.
Wow.
I remember having a profile and having my job role on there and my work history on there, but I didn't see it for what it was. I just thought it was like an online place that you register where you work. And now, of course, it's a networking platform. It's a place to be social, to, you know, develop relationships with people in other businesses, in other industries, other networks. And like, you are an award-winning, can I say, like networker. So like, let's get onto the subject of like networking, which is something you're taught to do in corporate, but networking outside of a job feels a little bit more scary, doesn't it? So like talk to us about networking, because I know there'll be loads of people that are listening thinking, oh God, I want to network more, but I just don't know how.
It's fun because network does invoke a lot of fear in people. And there's networking and there's networking and or not working, as lots of people also like to call it. I see the serial networkers out on the scene and wonder when they ever get anything done, but they're all having a lovely time. In somewhere like Brighton, you can literally network for breakfast, lunch and dinner all day.
And in my area as well.
Yeah. which is brilliant. And so the advice I will give to people when it comes to networking is to just try everything once and work out where you feel more comfortable, and also think about the kinds of people that you're trying to meet or the businesses that you want to connect with. I don't like to go in with a particular agenda, because for me, with, you know, the two businesses, absolutely anybody could be a client. So they might want help with their personal brand visibility, which is what I do as a coach now. They might want to increase their social circle in Brighton, in which case they would come out. They might want to advertise in Brighton, in which case I can help them. So I always go in with a really open mind to who I'm going to meet, because I might be able to help them or they might be able to help me. Yeah. There's nothing worse than someone selling at you. So build relationships first. Just talk to people and get to know them. Ask them about their business, how it started. I love hearing people's names of their business and why they chose those names, and getting to the stories that help you really connect to people. Yeah. And then think about the story that you're telling people too. There's nothing worse when you go networking other than people selling is when they go, oh, it's really boring, I do this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you just made it boring.
So, yeah, you just told me not to listen to you, basically.
You just told me, yeah, this is going to go. But there's different fun ways that you can think of explaining what you do. You know, when I was building Connected, I worked with this really great storytelling team, and we came up with the lines social concierge. So then when I was at networking, people were like, what do you do? I'd say, oh, I'm a social concierge. And I said, that's not a normal term. So then you've invoked curiosity in someone and they're like, oh, what does that mean? Yeah. Like, tell me, like, this sounds more fun. Like, tell me about you. So you want to make sure that people want to know more about you. And my toppest tip of all time is to be interesting, but also be interested.
Yeah.
Don't just talk at someone or let someone just talk at you. It's got to be a two-way street, because people will buy people. So if people are boring, they talk at you, they sell at you, you will just get an instant ick. So the icks that you get, make sure that you're not giving those icks to other people.
Yeah, there's nothing worse, is there, than seeing that person with a handful of business cards like walking towards you, and all they're thinking is, who can I give my card to? It's
like that hot potato thing. It's I've got to get rid of all these today.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, networking is a love-hate thing. When I ran my business very locally before I moved online, I used to network everywhere. Literally, I'd go to the opening of an envelope, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner, I was at everything. And I was one of the names that would always get given of, oh, if you don't know her, like, you literally don't know anyone, you know, like, you need to get to know her, because once you know her, she'll introduce you to other people. And I think that's a really good like position to be in if you've got a very local or regional business. You want to be seen as the person that is the conduit, the person that like makes other people feel comfortable, the person that, might organize a lunch one day just for fun, like I love networking now, but it was never a thing for me in corporate.
Because oh yeah, no, in corporate life, I did enjoy. We didn't really go to many networking things. There was a few bits and bobs, but there was no incentive for you to really go and meet other people.
Mm.
You'd really much stay in your crowd. And I see that a lot sometimes on the networking scene. If you don't get decision makers going to events, or you get two people from an organization, like they'll sit together, they'll do everything together instead of work in the room. But I really agree with that point, because for me, for the local business, for Connected Brighton, like I do need to be that key person of influence, and I will have like a little queue of people that want to talk to me at the end of events, or ask to speak at events, or I've got a good persona. I like to say I'm Brighton famous. It's kind of what I
Yeah.
always talk about. And
Yeah.
that's a local business that is amazing. And then it's very different when you're running an online business as to like then where do you want to network? And then it's more targeted of actually who are you trying to reach, and who's going to fill you up. I just went to a big event in Belfast, and it was all based around like the concept of sport and what we can learn about leadership. And I really loved networking with all of those women in Belfast, and thinking about actually who's the team behind the team. Who do you need around you, and always having that really open mindset and that growth mindset of actually I just really want to get to know people, and there's people here that can help me, and there's people here that I want to help.
Yeah.
But working out what that means for you and your business.
Yeah, absolutely. The most powerful question in networking, isn't it, is how could I help you? How could I be of help or service to you? Because it triggers that theory of reciprocity, that when you ask them, how can I help you? The first thing they're going to ask you back is, well, how can I help you?
Yeah.
So that was always given to me as like the number one networking tip. But I think the sort of next best tip after that is when somebody says to you, how can I help you? Don't be afraid to say like what it is that you want help with, because we're all quite bashful and humble, and we don't want to be needy or demanding. So if when somebody says, how could I help you? No, I'm okay. Well, no, you're not okay, because you're running a business. You want to meet people, you want clients, you want to learn more marketing strategies, you want to be able to like be great at making reels. You always need something. So when somebody's there, especially somebody that's an expert in something, saying, how could I help you, in what ways could I do that, like at least go into the conversation knowing what you need help with, and not being afraid to ask or suggest a collab, or something that you can actually do to develop that relationship.
Because I think we can hide behind like that. Oh, I'm really busy. Like when someone says like, how are you? Like, I'm really busy. Yes, everything's going really well, and actually it's not going really well. So so I totally agree. If someone offers a way to support you, one of the things I love doing for people is doing a personal introduction, because we don't always appreciate the credibility that we give when we make a personal introduction. If someone says, oh yeah, you should just contact Rachel, but they don't make the intro,
Yeah.
you won't feel as warm to me in
Yes.
that scenario. Whereas if someone's opened the door for you, the difference that makes, and it gives me ridiculous amounts of joy when I walk around Brighton and I see people meeting who I've introduced.
Yeah.
Because you're like, it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? Joanne, who is a lady in the mastermind, she knows that I know this lady who's, really good at what she does, seen as an absolute industry expert. And they'd had a connection in the past, but didn't have one recently. And she messaged and said, "Could you do me a favor and introduce me to her? Like, or just, tell her I'm going to get in touch." And I said, "Look, I've got a WhatsApp. Let me just message her." So I messaged her, and I didn't just say, "Can I introduce you to somebody?" I said, "This person wants you to speak at their event. It's going to be really high level. I'm also a speaker. I'm giving up my time for it. She wants to message you. Like, I'm going to set up a three-way conversation on Instagram." And she didn't just message back and say, "Yeah, I'll look out for the Instagram message." She messaged back and said, "If you're speaking at that, I'll speak at that. Tell her I'm in." So it's like, that is really powerful. Like when you've got people in your circle that do that for you and with you, there isn't anything better, really, is there?
I 100% agree. And we've worked really hard to get those networks, from sharing our stories, showing up online, being consistent, people knowing what we're about, wanting to listen to us, being curious, being impressed, being inspired, being motivated. But we can use that to always open the door or pull the next person up. As an International Women's Day event, and it was called Calling In, Not Calling Out, which was all about how we can help kind of men see what women go through. And there was typically more women in the room. There was one guy, but we had a great conversation. And one thing we were asked about was just making sure about the playing field and what can we do to make sure there's a level playing field. And I just said, if you can open a door for someone else, open it. We don't realise the privilege we have, whether that's in status, whether that's in our achievements, whether that's in our genders, whether that's in our race, any of it. So if you have an opportunity to help someone else, you have I think you have an obligation and a privilege to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels good as well, like if somebody starts their business week with, a list of what they want to accomplish, and on that list is help somebody else without expecting anything in return, or, do some random act of kindness without the expectation of anything in return, like that is going to make you feel good. It's also going to put you in a position of being seen as somebody generous, of somebody that will always be helpful. And in doing that, you build such an amount of respect, admiration, gratitude, but it always comes back. Even if you're like, no, I don't want anything in return. I just wanted to help you. Irrespective of that, it will come back to you always. I believe. You never know when or how or who, but it always does.
And it's the genuine people that you want to help. There's, I think, the other counterbalance to that is, you do also have to be guarded of your boundaries and your time and your energy, because there will be people as you rise who will want to feed off you. And so you do have to sort the trash from the treasure in terms of understanding like who is there to feed off you, but who is it that you can feed. So, and there's a difference between the two. So I have people now where I would give them a very limited amount of time, and then I would expect to be paid for my expertise, but I would always give them a limited amount of time and some advice for sure. And like introductions, love it. But if someone wants to spend a lot of time with you to just take all your gold, that's when you need to be thinking, actually, should this be a product or a service that I'm offering? Or how can I put a better boundary around? And I've had to learn, and I'm still learning how to do that and how to do it well. But it's a muscle, I think all business owners, anyone that's listening, that's thinking about starting a business, to just jot these top tips down as you go through, because you might not be ready to do it straight away, but it is for sure something that will come up for you at some point.
I've definitely experienced that, where you're very generous with what you do and what you give and how you help, but then when you notice it's not coming back, or there's no even thanks sometimes, and then you start feeling bad. But if you don't do anything about that feeling, then you just end up feeling worse and worse and worse. And actually, it's our own fault. I think we've got to take ownership for that. It's nobody else's job to put our boundaries in place. It's our job to honor them and, well, set them in the first place and then honor them. So, yeah, you make a really, really good point. And going back to corporate, like we're not necessarily taught boundaries, because you feel like you're there to give and you're in service, and your salary is being paid. Therefore, you just give. And I reached a point where I felt like I was selling my soul, and then until the day I realized it wasn't for sale, and then that was the beginning of the end.
That is so, especially when you get into senior management. I used to tell people off for sending, emails on holiday, because especially in corporate, your behavior trickles down to your team. So if your boss is working all the time, working on holiday, sending an email at midnight, there's then pressure on your team to feel like they can never take a break.
For sure.
And it's no wonder we've had this great resignation, not just from COVID, but from working conditions, because that whole thing in COVID was I'm not working from home, I'm living at work, and people would just out of boredom just get back on their laptops again. And I think there's still a culture of that. When I talk to some people still in corporate, where they just do like an odd bit at the weekend here and there, but because your salary is being paid, that's where the line break, isn't it? Whereas when you run your own business, there is a point where you have to start thinking of your time literally as money. So, and that's again been a lesson I've had to learn, and I'm still learning, of because I want to do everything for everyone, and then I have to stop and go, but hang on a second,
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in corporate, because you work an extra half an hour, you might get noticed for a bonus. There's toxic workplaces where if you're not in the office at 8 in the morning or still there at 6, you wouldn't make it onto the list for a bonus.
Yeah.
You've got to be so careful of the industry where you're working and what that will do to your soul, as
Absolutely.
you said.
Yeah. What advice would you give to women who are listening to this who are either fully in corporate, thinking about starting a business, or maybe straddling a corporate role, maybe even part-time in the corporate role, but wanting to get out and go into full-time entrepreneurship? Like, what advice would you give to them?
I would say I know how that feels because I was doing it, and there is a point where the calling will just become too loud, and or just that feeling that you're wasting time. Like life is just too short.
Mm.
So I would say that you obviously need to make sure that you can pay your bills. So that might be setting up a financial plan so that you will feel safer for a
Yeah.
particular period of time. But there is a whole world out there, and your energy goes where energy flows. So when you're trying to split that energy, it can be really hard. So to see the business that you really want, you need to think about where you're putting your energy into.
Yeah.
Talk to coaches and mentors. You've got fantastic programs. I'm on them and I've loved them and they've been life changing. There's incredible people around there who can show you what it's like to leave. And we're not saying for a moment that as soon as you leave, life will just be completely jolly and it'll be so easy. Like, it's hard to run a business. It's the most challenging thing I've ever done in my entire life, and I wouldn't change it for a minute. When I was earning 6-figure salary, I was an absolute shadow of myself. And at the beginning of Connected with a 1-figure salary, I was the happiest I've ever been. And I just feel like happiness is worth more.
Oh, I
So
love.
I would say follow people that are going to inspire and motivate you. Heed the call. You are being called for a reason. And
Yeah.
so you can try and ignore that calling, but it will not go away until you give into it. And so work out a plan so that you can give, even if you just say 6 months, take a sabbatical, agree a sabbatical from work, whatever safety net you feel will enable you to take that big step, take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And it's funny you talk about that actually, because I did have that. I had the luxury of a safety net because I had an exit agreement and obviously there was a payout. So I wasn't going out to find my first clients feeling desperate for money because I had that little safety net. But there'll be a lot of people listening to this who don't have that, and they literally would be handing in their notice and walking away with no guaranteed income, like whatsoever, which is gonna feel scary. And if you're listening to this and thinking that we're gonna tell you any different, we're not. Like, we're both gonna tell you it is scary, but actually, it's the most exciting thing ever as well, because you gotta have that trust that your skills are transferable, that what your expertise is monetizable, if that's a word. It's just having the confidence to stick a price on it and get out there and sell it, or, found the business that you've been dreaming of. Maybe you want to create something, like, I think it's going to be scary. And I want everybody to listen to this and know that even though it's scary, you can do it anyway.
It's 100% scary, but there is so much out there. I remember when I started Connected Brighton, because obviously I've been made redundant, so I did have some money in the bank. And I looked at everything that was free, the resources at my local library, where actually I have now been an expert for wellness for coaches to make sure that people, not just for wellness coaching, even to make sure people look after themselves in entrepreneurship, because it can take over your entire brain and you need to be careful to not burn out. So I was looking at what were all the free resources, like how can I absorb how can I learn as much as possible? And there's tons and tons out there to help you, to reassure you of what this might feel like. Go out networking really early before you've even got a business card. Go out networking. Pick one that you could do that's after work, that's not going to interrupt your corporate life, and just talk to people about what it's like to start a business. Look up coaches and mentors like us that can help you and talk you through it and give you the real talk. You aren't going to pretend that it's all shiny, and because it will be tough. There's also loans that you can go for and funding. You can get, I think it's 25k from the government when you start a new business, and I didn't even think to do that because I had money in the bank.
Yeah.
So there is something. I remember a coach saying to me early doors about actually when you have money in the bank, in some ways it's not helpful because you have got that safety net. It won't make you as hungry
Yeah.
for it or push for it. So there are pros and cons
Yeah.
for sure. But when
Yeah,
you have to make your own salary, it's a different kind of hustle and it's a different kind of energy. But when you do it, it does feel incredible.
absolutely. I think one thing, if I could go back and give advice to myself in like my first 6 to 12 months, it would be don't stress about getting it all just so. Like, don't stress about it all being perfect. Like, your personal brand, your website, your, like sales collateral, your marketing collateral, none of it's going to be the same. Like, your offers, they're not going to stay the same forever. They're always going to move. They're going to move with you, with your skill set, with the feedback that, you get from clients that gives you like new ideas of what you could do next. It doesn't all have to be perfect, which leads me on to like what you're now doing to help people with visibility and personal branding. If I'd have known a lot of what like you're now teaching in my first 6 to 12 months, I think I would have enjoyed it more. But tell us a little bit about how you're now helping people to shape their personal brand.
Because that's been the biggest thing for me with Connected Brighton. Was originally I thought it's just going to be these lovely pictures of Brighton and we're going to host events and it's going to be wonderful and everyone will, I'll just post it once and everyone's going to come and it's going to be wicked. And weirdly that did not happen.
Oh,
And
funny that.
funny, I know so much now. I feel like, oh, little green me had no
Yeah,
idea
look at
how
little
this was going to
Lyndsey,
work.
bless
Oh,
her.
yes, they've got results. That's not how the world works, I'm afraid,
No.
everybody. And I had to start sharing my personal story as to why I was doing this, because that was the biggest thing people asked me. And I have been writing a blog about my infertility that was called Not the Blueprint, which is still on Instagram. And if you are in that space, for sure have a look and do feel free to reach out to me, because it's a hard space to be in and it feels like you're very isolated, but you are never alone. And so I was very open on that. I was like healing in real time when I was going through like my divorce, and on my divorce tour I went traveling for 6 months, which I call Snap Nap Hope in ode of Eat Love Pray, and did lots of healing. And so there I was like super the face of that brand, and that's when I started coaching and I wasn't afraid to show it. But when it came to Connected Brighton, I really thought that was just going to be about Brighton. And then actually I realized people need to know who I am to buy this product. And as soon as I started to share my story and show up, that's when it skyrocketed. I've won awards every year. Like I'm in the top 100 female entrepreneurs for 2024 in the UK. And that is from having the bravery to share my story. And so now I help other business owners share their stories and be visible and leverage that personal brand that they have to sell their current business, but also enables them to start other businesses, because they're not just one thing. You can be multiple things. Because as you start in this entrepreneur journey, you're going to, like you said, your products and services, and that ladder of offers is going to grow and change as you grow and change. I never set out to be a personal brand and visibility expert, but that's what I have learned from creating Connected Brighton and being recognized for it. And now I'm like, right, I want to help you do the same with your business, because if you're struggling or stuck or starting out, like the rocket fuel for sure is always you. So the more that you can show up in your brand, the more successful you will be.
Absolutely. And you're embodying that. Like your community around you see you getting awarded, being on stages, getting nominated for the most amazing things, and then getting awarded for them. And they see that and think, I want to do what she's doing. So it isn't like you've just come up with a product and, started selling it. You are literally embodying the very thing that they want to be able to do. So of course they're going to want to come and work with you so that they can learn from how you're doing it. So is that what you're teaching now inside a program?
Yeah, so I've got two programs. So I've got an evergreen called Making Waves. So if you're ready to start making waves in your business. So this is for those ones that are kind of really new to it and they're like, how's this all going to work, Lyndsey? And so we get really clear on like clarity of your message, the confidence you need to deliver it, and then engaging content that's going to get you seen and build that following who are going to want to buy you. And then for those that are a little bit further along in the journey, you're like really hungry for growth, but you want that peer group support, because being a solopreneur, it can be really lonely. Yeah. So you need to make sure you do surround yourself with amazing coaches and mentors and other founders and business owners who get what it's like, because your friends and family who don't have businesses won't always understand you and why you're doing this. Yeah. When it's challenging, they're like, why are you making this so hard? But we do it because of the drive and the passion for it. So I have an amazing mastermind group called the Visibility Voyage, and that's where we help founders who are a bit more further along kind of think about scale and investment and give them that real kind of community support that they're looking for from a peer group who really get it, who really understand it.
Yeah, I love it. And, you know, we got the nautical theme going on because you are a girly. Love it.
I've got an anchor in my logo, so I was like, oh, I'm going to have to really lean in. I've got an anchor tattoo, and obviously I'm live by the sea. My granddad was in the Navy, and I got it actually when I was getting divorced to remind myself to be true to myself.
Yeah.
And like an enormous part of my brand has been authenticity. And I always say, you know, you are the niche. The thing that changed my world and my life forever was when I finally started being true to myself and doing the things that I wanted to do. We were just away in wonderful Marbella on your fantastic retreat, and I remember we were talking and you were saying, you know, shed the should.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest gift like we can give anyone is like stop thinking what you should do in life and just start doing the things that really light you up and bring you joy. Utilize your skills and make the world a better place in the way that only you can. And that this will for sure, I'm no doubt, be like giving some people the tingle and the trigger to be like, I need to just do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it sounds so cliche, doesn't it, to say this isn't a rehearsal, you know, we don't get another chance, but it's absolutely the truth, you know, like if you're not going to go for what you really want, then actually you're just wasting time. And although the fear is going to be there, the fear of leaving corporate, the fear of starting a business, the fear of what it won't work out, you know, what if it doesn't work out? What if nobody buys my offer? What if? The fear is always going to be there, but the true power and opportunity that we've got is to recognize that actually, if it all goes right, the opportunity of what could be is way more exciting, way more outbalances the fear. So, you know, like that old saying, you know, you just got to suck it up and get on with it. You kind of do, because you can't pacify the fear. You know, like you can't treat fear with rational conversation and be like, there, it'll all go away, because it probably won't. The butterflies in your tummy are going to be there regardless. But our job and our, you know, like commitment to ourselves is to just follow our heart. You know, I love it.
And just try, because that, you know, that was on a course by Small Business Britain who ran the campaign that I was listed, and the Minister for Business said anyone can start a business, but it's not for everyone. And I just love that, because what's the worst that can happen? You go back to corporate again.
You just go
Actually, it wasn't for you.
Yeah.
But what I would, it's like the whole, you know, it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. And I think I would rather have tried. You know, and for me, I can't even fathom the person I was before. I look back on that person in corporate who was, you know, smashing it and doing really well, but I don't recognize her now. And I'm glad I don't recognize her now, because I'd just much rather be who I am. You know, if the world had all gone horribly wrong and it hadn't worked out, I would have just gone and got another job. You know, the world isn't over.
Yeah.
And how much you're going to learn. Like, life is a one big amazing lesson if you let it. So why not just treat it like one and go and get some new experience, meet some new people? You know, I wouldn't have had so many incredible people in my life if I hadn't have started this business, who I now can't imagine my life without.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being really petrified. As a funny story, I was actually out for a meal with an old colleague from work, and it was a guy, like he used to come down and stay, like he used to bring Oliver like loads of sweets, and then we'd both go out and drink way too much red wine and have a meal and talk about our old corporate life. He'd already started his business, I hadn't. And I remember him raising a glass of red wine halfway over the table and saying, are you finally going to put your money where your mouth is? Are you finally going to do this? If you raise the glass and cheers me, you're doing it. And if you don't, then you probably should never. And he was really daring me, really like goading me. And I lifted up the glass and like reluctantly cheered. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then we came up with this little competition, because like Twitter was a big thing back then. Like we were both on Twitter, and we organized that we would have a little Twitter competition, first one to 5,000 followers. And I'm a very competitive person. So if somebody throws down the gauntlet, I'm all in. And I was like, there is no way he'd win in that competition. So I just absolutely went for it. I networked everywhere. I like tweeted about it. I tagged everyone in. Everyone I met, I tagged in. I'd get retweeted. And my Twitter, I think I beat him by more than 1,000 in the end. But that's how I started. Literally somebody daring me to cheers them so that I had to make the move, because I was petrified.
There are those people that will push you over the line. So my friend Marissa, she did that. I was talking about the idea for Connected Brighton over that winter where you can only have, you know, socially distanced walks. And I was saying, oh, I just really think there's something missing for, you know, people like me who are like in their 40s who want to do cool stuff and there's no one to do it. And what could it be? And then I talked about it for ages. And then she went, I'll do it with you if you want. And then as soon as she said that, I was off. That was it. I bought the Instagram, and within a week she was like, you don't need me, because I was like so into it. And then I just haven't stopped. Yeah, but I needed someone to push me over. And that's where I hope this might push someone over the edge. Because what's the alternative of us saying, no, if you're miserable, you need to stay where you are. Yeah. If you want to start a bit wooden, it's too hard, stay where you are. You know, that feel, you know, oh, that's such a horrible feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can choose that. And there's that great quote I love, whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. And I remember hearing that when I was unhappy in my job, I was unhappy where I lived, I was unhappy with everything, and realizing actually it was a choice.
Yeah.
And I like, hang on, hold the phone. I have a choice in all of this. It was a complete like revolution to me that, oh, I was in control of this. Like, oh, okay. Let's do this then.
Yeah.
I think it's a big mindset shift. And because when you're in corporate, you're so safe on one hand, but anybody could get made redundant any day of the week. You know, the safety is what you make it.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And I know, like, for me, it was like how many hours I was giving away, because my local office, well, there was a local office, then there wasn't, and it wasn't even regional. I had to travel to London or Manchester, and I'm down in Devon. So obviously I was constantly on planes and trains, always staying overnight in hotels. My travel must have cost them more than another salary. You know, they could have probably hired another one of me for the amount of travel and hotel bills that I used to put through. You know, I had a £5,000 a month expense account, but the amount of hours I was away from home, it was more than a job. It felt like they were buying my life. And that, if you're not changing it, you're choosing it. It was exactly the realization that I had, that I'm choosing not just to work here and get paid here and, you know, climb the ladder and all of that good stuff, some of which I really enjoy. I'm also choosing to give away parts of my life, give away time away from home, like give away so much of what I love doing for the sake of a company where, do they really value me as much as they say they do? I'm not sure that they do. It was like literally hitting a wall at 100 miles an hour. The realization was rapid. You know, but I'm so glad it happened.
But it's so easy to fall into those patterns exactly like you did, where because it's your job and it becomes your you know, that becomes your identity, and we just do it, and it makes us feel important when people need us so much. But again, to your point, like everybody is replaceable, and when you start to realize actually there's no point giving a business your life that isn't going to save your life if they have to make cuts, you know, because at the end of the day, it's their bottom line is going to matter more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just be again, that whole thing of like where you put your energy, just be aware of where any kind of misplaced energy is going, and actually where you could fuel that and turn that back into yourself. And I had that thing in corporate, that the love I have now for my business is that I get to judge what's good. I get to judge my value. Whereas I've been in corporate situations and watched other people in corporate situations who are great, but might have people above them that don't value them. And they get to keep you at a certain level where they feel comfortable where you are. Whereas when you run your own business and do your own thing, then you get to decide your level. You get to decide your worth. You get to measure how well you did that week. No one else can take that away from you. That gets to be yours and yours alone. And that's so empowering.
It is. That's like the ultimate freedom, right? When you have choice, like when you know that all the choices you get to make are yours to make, not really somebody else's masquerading as yours. Like, I think that's like the ultimate inner freedom that we all get to feel. And do you know what? It's funny, like you talk about measurement, because I always look back and think I left at the perfect time, because the week before I left was end of year reporting. And when that report landed in my inbox of the team that I ran, I had 13,500 customers, 57 staff, and a budget, a revenue like target of like 1.9 million a week. And when that end of year report came in, it went just over, I'm talking literally by pounds, over 100 million for the year. And I feel like the timing was so right, because if I'd have already left, if I'd have left even a week before it, I might not have got to receive that report and I've got the report saved to this day where I get to say I led a team to hit £100 million in a year. And we literally hit it by pounds. Like it wouldn't sound the same if it was like 99,900,000. It wouldn't sound the same, would it? So perfect timing.
Because that, we talk about it a lot in the mastermind of, confidence needs evidence, and we're very good at just being in what we're doing and forgetting to look up and look at the numbers. And I remember, because my background being in planning and performance, we were all about KPIs and the numbers. And then having my own data was so exciting, of like, oh, X many people follow us. Like with Connected Brighton, we have 130,000 views a month across our social media. And I love telling people our stats. Like it makes me so happy. But it's really important to remind yourself of those accolades that you've had from corporate that will help you. Now, I realise now, I do quite a lot of keynote talks on my experience and the journey into entrepreneurship and infertility. And when I do the hello slide and about me, I don't put anything about my corporate life on there. It suddenly hit me the last time I did a talk of, oh, wow, I haven't included any of that. Yeah. And I achieved loads of amazing things. But it feels like a rebirth when you become an entrepreneur. And so now the stats are different. But, that senior career set me up to be able to be an entrepreneur. Corporate helped me be who I am today. And I wouldn't change any of that. It's just not the right path for me right now. This is the right path for me right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I was the same. I didn't talk about any of the corporate stuff until it was pointed out to me. I think it was my mentor actually was like, tell me about, like what you used to do. And when I talk about it now, I even think, did I even do that job? Because it sounds like a very grown up adult job. It's like, did I actually even do that? But I love the talk about like measurement. You saying when you get to see your own numbers and you get to see the amount of impressions and you get to, you're an absolute like pro at like creating reels and, like getting great eyeballs on your marketing. There's so many women out there like want to know how to do that so that they can get exposure and visibility and build their confidence. So measuring the numbers is key because we get to then celebrate. We lock in that number, celebrate it, but then raise the bar, because that's the kind of human that we are. Like we're never happy settling, are we? We always want to like raise the bar, but you can't raise it if you don't know what the number is in the first place.
No, and it's a real gift to have that in your business. And, whether it's just on social media and you can monitor, what posts do well, what posts don't do well, everything is a lesson. Like the data is teaching you something and helps you tell a story. And then where you can course correct, as I would always say in my corporate life, of, do you need to change the plan because actually that didn't go so well. Let's do some A and B testing. Let's, it connected. I was away for a few days in Marbella with you, and our views dipped because I wasn't doing the reels that I would normally do. So that's great because I know that actually people want to see those reels. That's great data for me, and I can do something about it. And I just think there's so much that can help you run a business. I've learned so much over the last 4 years, and I've still got so much to learn because everything is changing. So that's the other thing for someone that might be listening and thinking like, I just don't know it. But the thing is, you're never going to know it all because the world is constantly turning around. The rules of like tax rules have changed. The algorithms shift on social media. We're all just trying to keep up with it. But you will find your style and your tone and your way, and you will make it happen. If you have the grit and resilience to want to do this, as soon as you take that step, you'll do it. You'll make it work one way or another.
Yeah, especially if they come and work with you.
Yes, exactly. Come and talk to me. Give me a follow, and I'll lead, trying to lead the way. That's always my thing of like leading by example, because I haven't just read a textbook and now I'm telling you how to do it. We've both lived this, and that's where, when I first found you, and I related to you so much because you had come from a senior corporate career. So straight away there was one hook that meant she will get me. Let me listen to her. So whatever hook it is that helps you find the right person to work with you, think about it on return. Like, what's the hook that's going to make people want to work with you? Is it that you've also come from corporate? Is it that you're a mum? Is it like me that you're not a mum? Is it, where you live? Is it, there'll be lots of other things outside of your offer that are the one thing that makes someone want to work with you. And that's where like your personal brand can be just the special sauce that gets people over the line, because they're like, actually, I relate to your story.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes so much more than a glossy sales pitch to sell an offer. And usually it's the things that people think it isn't. So you're spot on, it's like the things like telling your story. Like there'll be one thing in your story that resonates, like you seeing me as another ex-corporate. It's like, we all want to be seen and understood, don't we? Like we all want to feel that we're part of something. So where can people find you then? I'll drop your Instagram below this podcast episode. It will also go over on my YouTube channel as well. We'll put your handle. Is your handle Lyndsey Clay Coaching?
It's Lyndsey Clay Coach.
Coach, Lyndsey Clay Coach. Great. Well, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, who is this powerhouse woman that she's got on the show? It's Lyndsey Clay, and you can go follow her on Instagram at Lyndsey Clay Coach. And if you're like, Rach, what you're talking about, how do I spell all that? It'll be below in the show anyway.
Thank you so much for having me on. This has been delightful.
Oh, you're so welcome. I feel like we could literally go on for like 3 more hours,
This is one of the series.
Yeah, we should literally do a series. But no, I think there's so much that you've talked about here that, that obviously I resonate with as well, because our backgrounds are similar and our ambitions are similar. That we've both got the ambition to like help women. We've both got, like that impact goal as well as the success goal and the high achieving woman gene. But there'll be so many things in this episode that I know have helped people. It may be just solidifying a view or a thought or an opinion that you've already had. It may be a complete light bulb of something that you've never even thought of before. But like if you want to reach out to Lyndsey, have a chat with her, reach out to me, have a chat. Like we're both here to support you. So I will share this episode far and wide, so will you. We'll just make sure as many women as possible get to hear the message of what we've shared today. So thank you so much for being here with me.
You're so welcome. I'm excited for the journey that we've still got ahead together and how we can help and empower more amazing women to do the same.
Oh, me too. Music to my ears. I'll see you next week, everyone.